2 years after the application of Article 370, it's good to do a quick audit in terms of the successes and in terms of the failures. There are two planks on which a Naya Jammu and Kashmir can potentially be built: security, comprehensive security, and development and good governance. On the security front, there's a remarkable degree of quiescence in the streets of Srinagar, in Jammu, and in other parts of the valley and the Union Territory. There aren't massive protests, there isn't stone pelting, terrorism is at its lowest ebb. The border and the LOC, despite the tensions with Pakistan, is remarkably quiet. Now, of course, there is simmering tension within the youth, alienated youth, and there are reports of homegrown militancy in the south of Kashmir, but the security situation is not such that you can think that it will overwhelm the Union Territory. Now, you might say that in terms of security on the ground, that has shown signs of improvement in terms of the levels of violence and in terms of militancy and terrorism. But in terms of development, unfortunately, as the former Chief Minister Omar Abdullah pointed out, there's very little to show that there has been better governance over the last 2 years or that there has been a fast tracking of development. Much of this has to do with the fact that bureaucrats have ruled the state, ruled with their own writ, without taking into account the needs of the people, often in a very dictatorial fashion, as happened with the last Chief Secretary, who was there sent especially on a mission mode. But there's nothing visible. When I lived there in Srinagar for many months in a year, in terms of public services, they're as good or as bad as they were before the application of 370. Similarly, in terms of infrastructure, where is the infrastructure which could create a Davos-like facility in Jammu and Kashmir? Wasn't that the promise? Wasn't that the slogan? That this is going to be the new Davos, this is going to demonstrate how 370 has acted as a barrier towards external investment, internal investment, and better governance? Sadly, 2 years may not be enough, but at this moment the signals are not that strong. What you do need, therefore, is a democratically elected government which is accountable to the people. Who are bureaucrats accountable to, except a dotted line to the President of India? Our bureaucrats will deliver when there are effective political leaders, as happens in the center. Prime Minister Modi, for instance, uses bureaucrats as sharp instruments of delivery. And that's why it's important that there is a restoration of statehood, an early return to democracy, and better governance. On politics, what you have is that after periods of spending several months in detention, the mainstream of the political parties, grudgingly so, have accepted that the clock can't be turned back, that you cannot have an early restoration of Article 370 unless the Supreme Court acts in a way to restore that. And they seem to have accepted the invitation of the Prime Minister to enter in dialogue with the centre to try and see how the bridge between Srinagar and Delhi and Jammu and Delhi can be further strengthened or the trust deficit removed. For them, clearly, there are signs of how that dialogue should move forward: early elections, full restoration of statehood, and ensuring that there is no gerrymandering in terms of the constituencies that are being delimited as we speak. Similarly, I think it's on their insistence that there have been reservations for jobs and measures to prevent any land alienation. Societally as well, I think the gulf between Jammu and Kashmir remains intact, and the chances and the return of Kashmiri Pandits back to the valley with dignity remain as weak as they were earlier. In other words, I think that for the next 1 year, the centre needs to act with greater alacrity